Hello, everyone. Joining me now, Kristen Carr, a concerned parent from the Oxford School District. I was working in the media when this happened. I remember all of this. And just when you think you've heard everything about this story, it just continues to evolve, and it's all tragic. Kristen, thanks for joining us. Why are you so, involved? And so I understand why you're so emotional, obviously, but why are you willing to put your face out there and voice your concerns? That's tough for some people.
It is. And, right now there's so many people in the community, parents, teachers, staff, everything, everyone that is just so beat down and tired and exhausted and grieving. And, everybody's tired, and everywhere we turn, we're stonewalled. You try and figure out some information, you try and get information, and you're blocked by the prosecutor, you're blocked by the district, by the district's attorneys. And it's just exhausting, and somebody has to, and there are quite a few of us that are speaking out. Somebody's got to try and help the parents of the victims. That's really the biggest thing for me is, we get to go home to our kids every day. These parents don't. And, it takes a village, and they can't fight alone, really.
There was a report released, was it last week, by a independent firm to study what happened?
Yes. So Guidepost Solutions released their second report October 30th, which was last Monday. And this company, third-party investigator, was hired by the school board district, or the district school board, to do an independent investigation of the shooting, because there were so many questions, concerns, and the school board said, let's hire someone else to, investigate this.
Yeah.
And throughout this process, it's been 2 years, and we're just now getting this report.
Yeah. I put it up on the screen. I think it's like a lot of pages, but this is it right here, I think.
It's almost 600 pages. It's
Okay.
a lot to read, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the report? Did it do a decent job in telling what you think? Did it get beyond what you don't know? What's your take on the report?
My take is that, it basically confirmed a lot of things that we have been saying for the last 2 years. A lot of details that were learned about the actual shooting, on the 29th and the 30th, every hour, every minute basically is broken down in this report leading up to the shooting, and every minute during the shooting and afterwards. So we learned a lot about that. I know that the parents of the victims learned a lot about what happened to their kids that they haven't known for the last 2 years.
You would think, and that's not how they should learn. They should learn from human to human contact, either law enforcement or the school. They shouldn't have to learn at the same time the media learns it. That should be I know there's lawsuits involved, but be a human being. I mean, it's just it's sad.
It actually, it goes over in the report. It's 600 pages, so it's a lot to read, but it details, Guidepost talked to most of the victims' parents, and most of them expressed, their anger against the district for their lack of concern, their lack of communication. There was never, really any phone calls saying, hey, how are you guys? Do you need anything? It says a lot of it was via email, and it was just, they took the compassion element out of everything, and they weren't people in those times. They were just, I don't even know how to I could never do that as a person. So reading that, I just can't comprehend it, honestly.
And I've dealt with school districts my entire career. There's many good ones out there, but there's a lot of bad ones, and they were probably immediately scared of a lawsuit. But in that situation, you have to be a human being.
Right. Right.
I saw this, and I pulled a couple from the screen. Boy, my eyes are really bad, and my eyes are bad to read this. Let me make it full screen here for me. Sorry. It says the board is responsible for ensuring that the superintendent implements the board policies. In this case, by creating administrative guidelines for the threat assessment policy, the board did not do so. that's just one of many, many, many I found where they are placing the blame on the board or individuals, basically saying this could have been prevented.
Correct. So that brings us back to the EOP, the Emergency Operations Plan.
Yeah, and I wasn't recording when we were talking earlier, but let me explain this, and I'll, for people who don't know, the state of Michigan has a law, and it's called like the Emergency Operations Plan. All the school districts are supposed to, and I'll let you explain it, is to update their security or their procedures.
Yeah, so it's an emergency operations plan where they have to set guidelines and procedures for things that they're supposed to do in the event of an active shooter or, any kind of weather related emergency or, anything of that kind of nature where district students could, be harmed.
Okay.
So that, this is Michigan law that says they were supposed to develop all of these things, which they did in 2019, but they were required to do an EOP update and a vulnerability assessment. Both of these two were done or were supposed to be done by January 1st of 2022. They did not do those. And this update and the vulnerability assessment, I know we talked about this before, but they would have looked at all of the issues that the district had, all of their failures. It would have looked at their PA system that didn't alert students that the shooting was going on. It didn't, or it would have looked at the fact that only the SRO or the security guard had access to the cameras. The camera system wasn't logged into that day. There should be threat assessment teams that are set up to, deal with the situation that they had. It would have required them to look at if their staff, their counselors, their teachers, everybody was trained in threat assessments.
And we're not, and I want to be careful because I'm always worried about, we're not saying anything that isn't in this report. Everything you just mentioned, the failures, it's in this report, most of it that I read.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, and it's documented now, it is in this report. If anyone wants to read it, I'll put a link. So those failures that were in this report could have been found if they would have followed the law and followed their, what is it called again? The EOP.
Your EOP, yeah, which the EOP required them to do a threat assessment, which would have required them to look at their vulnerabilities, which would have been all of those things: the PA system, the cameras. You don't have threat assessment teams set up. You don't have, you don't have any of the things implemented that you should, that could have, saved the lives of these 4 kids.
That is, I mean, that's one failure, and then we have, I guess we actually do have, we have human failures as well.
Yes.
I bring this up on the screen, and I'm always careful about litigation and so forth. I'm going to read from the document, so anyone wants to sue me, I'm reading from the document. And this says that administrators did not conduct a threat assessment because Sean Hopkins and Nick Ejek never reported the concerning conduct and behaviors to a principal or assistant. We also conclude the shooter's concerning behaviors and communication should have resulted in suicide intervention. This troubling statement such as, help me, my life is useless. So it's right there in black and white that this report is blaming those individuals as well.
Yes. And the district did have, policies in place. They just did not have the training to follow through with them. If they would have followed a threat assessment protocol, EJAC and Hopkins should have alerted the principal. They should have alerted an assistant principal, but they didn't.
And this was very striking that I saw this here. In blue, the district was responsible for keeping Madison, Tate, Justin, is it Hannah?
Hannah, yes.
Right? Hannah, okay, I'm going to make sure I pronounce it right. And all the other survivors and students safe. They failed to do so. That's plain as day right there. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen in all of my career a report this thorough where they're basically saying they failed and it led to the death of young people. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, and it's just beyond belief. I can't imagine being the parents or even you in that community, the failure that district, you put your kids to school and you trust that they're going to do this. This is a failure from top to bottom.
The sad part is, they had every opportunity to do it. They had 2 years to update their EOP, to look at their vulnerabilities. They had $443,000 to make sure that their staff was trained, that they had all of this stuff in place, and they chose not to do it.
What they do with that money then? I mean,
They did a lot of things with that money. They bought a lot of property. They did a lot of things that did not involve the safety and security of our kids.
did they? I've lived in a lot of different areas, communities where, oh, it can't happen here. Did they actually think, I wonder, in their minds, it won't happen here, it
Oh,
can't
yeah.
happen here, we're
Absolutely.
Oxford?
This is Oxford. It'll never happen here. Yeah.
Because I've been in districts, areas and you get that feeling among people, but was that the administration? Everyone just probably felt, oh, these are rules, but it's not going to happen here. You think that's kind of what it
Oh,
was?
yeah. I feel like I probably thought that before the shooting too. We live in Oxford, that would never happen here.
Yeah, but you trust as a parent, though, you pay taxes as well. You
Right.
trust that they're going to carry out the safety and as they need to act as if something's going to happen, because my God, at that point, we've had so many of these. It's been in rich districts, poor districts, doesn't matter, rich, poor, whatever. Yeah, I mean, as parents, I'm in TV news, so obviously I think it can happen anywhere, and it can.
Right.
So that's the thing. You think that they obviously failed, but you think in the back of their mind, they really thought it was never going to happen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do. But it did. It did.
Yeah. What I know there's lawsuits, but lawsuits cannot bring back people. That's it. It doesn't matter.
And these families don't care about the money. Their kids they're gone, and nothing will bring them back. And we have a school district that won't accept responsibility when they are very clearly responsible for the deaths of these 4 kids. And not just the deaths of 4 kids, it's the several others that were shot, and community members and staff and, everyone involved, the communities around Oxford. Everybody has been grieving for the last 2 years. Everybody.
What's the reaction? You obviously, you're a parent of the district, but you've had friends probably. What are others saying about this report? Have you been able to talk to any other people about this report? What are they saying?
I think a lot of the community, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people are just like so defeated that probably most haven't read the report. I know that there's a lot of us that are, knees deep in this report. But like I said, everybody's just so exhausted and tired and all of the above. And it's like we try and get somewhere and you can't, because the district has attorneys and the district won't tell us anything. And then, we had the parents and the sentencing and all this stuff. And it's like, no, you can't have this and you can't have that.
So this is the report right here. And you say a lot of the parents, are the parents over it that they just don't want to deal with the grief and the craziness? Or are they just so over being stonewalled by the district?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of a lot of things, and a lot of people don't know what to do, because what can we do? Because every time we try and do something, it just doesn't happen, because there's attorneys blocking things. There's the prosecutor who says, we can't say this because we got to prosecute the parents. And, no one's ever going to get closure until we know the truth. And this guidepost report has left us with a lot of questions, and a lot of things have been left out that should have been put in there. I sent you that email that I sent the board. It's such key information that people know that the district violated Michigan law. Yeah. They violated Michigan law by not updating their EOP, by not doing the vulnerability assessment. And, they say, well, we didn't know. The superintendent said, we didn't know. We thought, I thought that, my principal was doing what he was supposed to. And I thought my assistant superintendents were doing what they were supposed to. And, the principal thought that his staff was doing what they were supposed to. And we can't, that's not how this works. You can't just say, I didn't know. 4 kids died.
We covered this, and I wasn't there. I remember anchoring the news. At any point, has anyone from the district ever come out and apologized?
No.
And just admit it that, hey, we messed up.
No.
We are sorry. And I don't think I've heard that ever.
That's all we're asking for. And they won't. We're doing a Guidepost was here last week, and they did a Q&A, quote unquote, to answer questions from the community. And they did a decent job, answering our questions. But a lot of the answers were, you need to take it up with your board. Well, we can't take anything up with our board because we go to board meetings and they look right through us. They don't respond to us.
And I know I have issues with the board. Are there new board members? Are they the same board from before? Or are they pretty much the same?
So there's 2 board members that are still on the board from when the shooting happened. And that email that I sent you is demanding the resignation of those 2 board members because they were responsible for making sure that the district's EOP and vulnerability assessment were completed. The EOP and the vulnerability assessment had to be done by the district. Jill Lamond, she was the assistant superintendent. And here's the thing. So everybody is saying it wasn't their responsibility to do the EOP. All the information that we have says that Jill Lamond was responsible for doing the EOP and the safety and security and everything over the district. And, she says it wasn't her responsibility. It's everybody else's responsibility. Anyways, they were supposed to have it done. And like I said before, the state sent them multiple emails saying, your EOP update is due. And this is not just a snap your fingers, it's done kind of process. It's a lengthy process. So yeah. The district has to submit their EOP, this assessment, all of that stuff, and then they take it to the board to have it approved. Okay. The board is also responsible for making sure that all of these guidelines and procedures are in place, and they failed to do so. November 9th.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. It says right here, the board of the school district or intermediate school district shall adopt the emergency operations plan by a majority vote of the members serving on the board. There you go.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, you're fine. So they are equally as responsible. But November 9th, 2021, I have a video of Jill Lamond talking at the board meeting, and she says, she talks about the EOP update that they need to do, and she says, it goes over, the EOP goes over, active shooters, and I'll get it to you next month at the next board meeting. Well, that was 3 weeks before the shooting.
Wow. Yeah, the blame game is just, it seems like no one's taken responsibility. No. And I'm assuming, I know how the lawyers had probably told everyone just to shut up.
Yes.
But if I'm not in that position, but if I was a superintendent or someone, I don't care. I wouldn't. Children lost their lives. Right. It's just. So where do we stand now? Is the school safer now than it was? I would hope than back then. I know they've done a lot there. I would hope that things are better.
They're definitely working on it. The problem is we just don't trust them anymore.
It's just like the Flint water crisis, totally different, but no one will ever trust the state of Michigan because of that.
Right. So, like you can throw all these fancy flashing lights at us and, look at how great and glamorous all of this stuff is. But Madison, Tate, Justin, and Hannah are still gone.
What has it done to, you said, I guess I can say you have children in the district or were in the district. How are the students? I can't imagine going back in or even being in the district when that happened or being part of it. That's all you're going to remember as a young person at Oxford's tied to that now. It's just sad.
Um, I don't know if this is 100% fact, but I think that Oxford is the first district to ever go back to the same high school that had a shooting.
I'm trying to think about that. They went back. Did they go back in the January in the winter of
Yeah.
following?
So they went back the end of January.
Wow.
And those kids are not, they're not okay. They're not okay. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they should just bulldoze the entire school, because how do you make these kids go back and walk a hallway where they watched their friends die?
I don't know. And we've talked about the failure at the school, the parent, the whole thing. And like I say, it's been so many years, but every day, the failures on every level. I mean, just today there was an incident. I don't know if you followed it. There was a shooting in Nashville at a school, and
Ugh.
now some stuff got released today, and they're thinking stuff shouldn't be released. But all of this is out here now. Every school in the nation should learn from this. No matter if you're in Royal Oak, Bloomfield Hills, or what, doesn't matter where you're at. It can happen anywhere, and you need to be prepared. This should be a lesson for every district.
Yes. And I've spoken at plenty of board meetings where I told them, I said, how can any other district ever learn from what you guys failed in if you don't ever admit your failures? How will we ever do that? I mean, and the district will never come out and say what they did wrong. How is any other district around them ever supposed to learn from them?
And that's what it is now, that you're saying that we can never bring back the ones that we lost, but we could possibly learn from the failures, because that's what's usually done in life. Learn from your failures to save others, that other districts that might be going through these issues. But you're saying that they're stopping that because they're not being honest and forefront and just admitting, hey, we messed up. Let's help this district or that district. We don't want it to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. They just won't do it.
What would make you happy? Would it be to come out and say, literally, lay it out, just lay out what they did wrong, apologize, sit down face to face to parents and just lay it out as a human being? Is that what everyone's looking for? To cut through the lawyers, cut through the BS and just be human? Is that what people want?
Yeah. And I can't speak for the victims' parents, obviously, but I know that most of us in the community, we want an apology. Just admit that you were wrong, that you did wrong, and we might be able to move on from this.
And like you said, it's not about the money, because money can't bring people back. But in many instances, if they to be punished because they did do failure, so they need to be punished in some way, many people say. But an apology, it would have been nice from the very beginning. Because in the beginning, the communication, I remember the very, very beginning, the communication, if I remember it correctly, was not good at all.
No, not at all. And even with, the victims' parents, it wasn't good. So it's been a cover-up for the last 2 years. How can the district protect itself? They hired Guidepost but Guidepost, the board is Guidepost client.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised they called them out as much as they did.
Yeah. So, but the problem also lies with Guidepost went into closed session with the board, and closed session information is confidential.
Oh, so none of this is falls under freedom of information because it's a private. It's their client.
Correct.
So this isn't FOIA-able. This isn't something where you can go and FOIA it.
And
I
somebody, I don't remember who it was, but a parent asked what was said in that closed session, and Guidepost wouldn't answer.
Yeah, because that makes sense. And because they're a private company, I thought at one point the Michigan AG wanted to do her own investigation. I think they didn't want that.
Yeah, the
I
school
don't.
said no.
Yeah. So, and I'll ask, you may not know this. I may need to look it up. Are they, I think they are eligible to be sued. They were fighting at one time that they were immune from lawsuits. But do you know how that went? Or,
They a judge, I believe in Oakland County Circuit Court, ruled that they have immunity.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we would like to see the people responsible. We have this evidence that shows they were directly responsible. The board, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, Hopkins, Pam Fine, EJAC, all of these people are directly responsible for the deaths of these kids. They need to be prosecuted.
Yeah. Oxford schools and staff immune from shooting lawsuits, which is, I I couldn't live with myself if I was any of those individuals.
Yeah.
I would have to just come out and say, "My God, I'm so sorry that I failed." I mean, I know they didn't want students to die.
Right. Yeah.
But
I don't think any
God,
of this was intentional. It's just lack of common sense, lack of training. That would never happen here. Those kinds of things.
mentality, and that's why we need to talk about it more. It does happen, and it is happening, and that's why I think Michigan even updated that operations plan, because it had been happening so much.
Yeah. And Michigan actually emailed the district and said, "Hey, there's an uptick in, school violence. You need to pay attention to it." And I don't know if you know anything about what was going on prior to the shooting. There was a deer head incident on November 4th.
And that wasn't related to him, was it? It
They
was
say that it was
different.
not,
Okay.
but we've kind of pieced together that the shooter kind of looked at the deer head kid as, "You're trying to outdo me, so I'm going to outdo you." And we think that it escalated his behaviors, and he was in crisis. The district has Sabres testing that showed that he was off the charts with his he was in crisis, really.
Yeah.
And the district didn't look at that information. They say they didn't have it. They did from, months before. And he was in crisis, and this kid put the deer head in the courtyard, and a couple days later the shooter puts a baby bird's head in a jar of urine. And we think that the deer head thing just escalated the shooter, because how dare you try and outdo me? I'm going to outdo you.
Yeah, and that's what happens.
Yeah. And the school should
Well,
have noticed that. It was on
yeah,
social media. It was everywhere. So,
hopefully, I guess talking about this, putting it out there more, honoring those who lost their lives, but also holding them accountable. When's the next board meeting? There wasn't one tonight, right? Or no? Was it?
no, it's next week, I believe the 14th.
Okay. You wrote that letter. Are you actually going to go speak, or just?
I go to most board meetings unless I absolutely can't make it. I'm kind of waiting to see if the district ends up saying anything. I'm going to see if, Heather Schaefer and Mary Hanser resign. Basing off of the last 2 years, they probably will not. And they probably will not respond to me. And when we talk at the board meetings, they look right through us and they show no emotion. They just sit there in silence. So, yeah.
Well, I'm appreciate you. I'm gonna put this out there, and yeah, parents need to question these things. Like, I didn't even know. until you told me about that emergency operations plant. I didn't even know there was a thing. And
Yeah.
I should
Wow.
know that. I didn't know. So parents, hey, it doesn't hurt to go ask your district, are you doing it right? I mean,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody should be asking their districts if they have implemented an EOP in their district. Do they have threat assessment teams set up? Do they have, their 8,400 threat assessment policies up to date? Or, is all of your staff trained in recognizing a threat or recognizing a child that's in crisis? All of those things.
because it would have saved lives, according to this report. So that's one good thing we can get out of it. Maybe parents step up and just challenge your school district and put them, they work for you and me.
Yes.
So if something good can come of this, no matter what district you're in, challenge your board, say, have you done this? I guess.
Yeah. Another thing I just wanted to add was, I quoted it in my letter that I sent you, but Michigan law says that the school board has a duty to protect our children while they are at school, while they're at a school event, anything on the school grounds. The school and the school board are responsible for ensuring their safety. That is their duty, which is one thing that I am stressing, that the school board, the two that are still on the board, they did not do that. And they continue, by being on the board, being a risk to our district or our students that are still in the district, because they obviously cannot follow their duties and Michigan law.
That's important to note. When you become a school board member, you don't just do it to, to be on the board. You do it because you're doing it because you want to help children. That's why you should be doing it.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, keep me updated. Let me know what
I will.
happened. I'm up in Saginaw County, but I was in Genesee at the time, and it's just really sad because every time this comes up, it's just a horrible situation, and
Yeah.
prayers go out to everyone. So yeah, keep me updated, and just thank you so much.
All righty. It was good